Yeah.
Chuck's telling us it's time. So we'll bring the March 8th, 2022 public safety meeting to order. Roll call. I am here. Councilmember Fullerton and Councilmember Baldwin are both here. We'll go to East Pierce Fire and Rescue monthly report. Chief Parkinson.
All right. So in the call stats that you got, that should have come out to you on Monday, nothing dramatic that's in there. Our trend remains that we're seeing an uptick for the most part in units out of Bonney Lake. There is an error, and I'll shoot out an updated packet that after this. So when you go later into the packet, the slides that talk about transports, and it references the number of EMS calls versus patient contacts versus transports. And there's our data analyst did a combination of month-to-date and year-to-date stats in there, so it's kind of out of whack. So it should read more like our year-to-date is 1,610 EMS calls, 1,556 patient contacts, and 1,049 transports. And it appears a little different than that, but just trying to give everybody an understanding of how often does an EMS call turn into a medical transport, which in turn puts a crew out for a good hour or two that they're out of service by the time they go to the hospital and back. And then just on happenings, so as we were talking about mask updates before the meeting started here, so obviously we have some upcoming changes in masking. We hope that trickles down to us, but we're still waiting to see what L&I guidance comes out. For the most part, most of our stations and other areas are considered healthcare settings, so there's still masking mandates and other rules that while they don't always make sense, we're stuck with complying with. So that would be a welcome change for our personnel if and when that comes down the pipe. But with that, we're obviously seeing some changes in our ability to interact with the community. So we're starting up public CPR classes now. Our Easter egg hunts, which have always been happening in the past, that have been canceled for the last couple of years. So Sumner, Edgewood, and out in South Prairie will have those events this year. We're starting to see more of our community groups. Chamber of Commerce starts back up in person this month, as well as the Fife Milton Edgewood Chamber of Commerce also. So both groups that we're involved with, and I know both Chief Jeter and myself are card-carrying members of the newly formed Bonney Lake to Holly Rotary, which Councilwoman Baldwin was nice enough to attend last week, or the week before, whenever that was. So it's nice to see us being able to interact with the community again. So excited for that. Later this week on Thursday, we have a joint meeting that we've been working on for the last 6 months or so, interacting more often with our policing partners. So in this one, we'll have Bonney Lake, Sumner, Pierce County, because they serve obviously our unincorporated areas, but also City of Edgewood, then Milton Police, and hopefully, part of this will be receiving some updates from police regarding legislative changes that hopefully help out both of us, and then just continuing our work on how both parties approach behavioral health calls and coming up with new strategies to work together. But I'm extremely grateful for that relationship with Chief Jeter, and it's nice to be able to pick up a phone and make a phone call with somebody that you know instead of not having that to work through. So, and then just last update is that starting in May, I'll be out doing just organizational updates to all the city councils in our area. So I've got Bonney Lake scheduled for May 3rd. I think you guys have is that a workshop?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be presenting to you guys then. Obviously, you in public safety will already know the bulk of the stuff, but that'll be a chance to get in front of the full council and just spend 5-10 minutes talking about what's going on, where we've been, and where we're headed. That is all that I have. If there's any questions that I can answer.
Questions for Chief? All right, thank you, Chief.
All right.
Going into presentation number 2, the Police Department monthly report. Chief Jeter.
All right. Well, these are just kind of a brief synopsis. A very, very busy month. I'd just say we had a few DUIs, One tried to make the Glow Martini Bar a drive-through.
Oh my.
So
I
this
saw
was like 3 weeks after they had their front door shattered by a burglar, so they've had a target on them. Another one, a DUI at the Speedway Express. Female was passed out at the gas pump with a 5-year-old child in the back seat. So strong arm robbery, which basically is a loss prevention person getting punched by a shoplift suspect, which ratchets up to a robbery. Then we had a CPR in progress. One of our off-duty officers happened to be by the Bank of America and saw a gentleman fall over. Checked on him. He was not responsive, did not have a pulse. He performed CPR until the Chief Parkinson's crew got there, and he was able to get a pulse back, and the guy was breathing on his own by the time Powell got there. Fire took him some minutes to the hospital, and we're told that he was released the next day, and he's doing just for what caused it. But our officer will be recognized with a lifetime award for that. And then I will direct you to the back page, which is very disturbing. If you look at, and I know I always tell you, do not compare year to year, because that's not a great comparison as far as stats go. But if you look at the number of offenses in January of 22 compared to January of 21, 135 in 22 compared to 21 in 21. And we had 59 thefts in January of this year. We had 8 last year, 12 burglaries, 1 last year, 7 assaults, 1 last year, 25 destruction of property, vandalism, 1 last year, motor vehicle thefts, 10 this year, 0 last year. And here's the biggest thing. Last year we had 77 arrests in January. This year we only had 35. So that is a combination of COVID and legislation. So we had 1,000 more calls for service in January of this year than we had in January of 21. So I'm not a math major. I went to WSU, but that's quite a big uptick in activity with not a lot of people being held accountable.
Yes.
So our officers were very busy, have been very busy. That's it on the report. Unless anybody has any questions, I do have FYI type information. Councilmember Evans, if you want me to wait till good of the order, if you want to do that now, whatever is your pleasure.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, is there any questions on the report before I move forward? All right. We hired our new CSO yesterday, Dennis Harrison. He comes to us from the city of Fife. He was a transport officer there for 3 years. Prior to that, he was a corrections officer for me, actually, in Puyallup for 30 years. He's got a very good background, but he doesn't have a ton of experience with being a community service officer. So, but he's always been involved in the community aspects of things. So he's very excited to get going. We're lucky to have him. So he's drinking from a fire hose. I've warned everybody he is not Nate Alvord. Nate was kind of a unicorn. So, but he is he will do a great job for us. We do have our officers finishing up the background process, the lateral from King County. We're hoping that we can get him started either March 16th or April 1st, depending on when we can finish up his background. Tony Rice retired on the 28th of February. So he's gone on to, he's got his own business now, and so he's going to do that instead of being a police officer. Detective Kyle Torgerson will retire at the end of this month. He'll have 20 years with Bonney Lake in March, so he figured that's a good time to pull the pin. I know that I sent you all an update on the legislation. We have some pretty good news, but it's not complete yet. I know we met with Chief Parkinson's crew yesterday on legislation that allows officers to use force for involuntary treatment or behavioral health. Problem is they have not passed a companion bill that defines what force is. So we're still kind of treading water on that, but it looks like it's probably going to go through. But there's a lot of changes that will clarify it and help out, and one of them being the definition of 50 caliber. So we are able to use our shotguns and our less lethal shotguns again, which were kind of put on hold for a while. National Night Out will be coming back this August. It will be an in-person event. And we're going to meet next Tuesday to discuss that with David Wells and Chris Yanez, our CSO, on kind of what that looks like. They want to combine it with concerts in the park. So we're going to be looking at possibly doing that. I am a traditionalist, and I want to keep it on National Night Out, which is the first Tuesday in August. And obviously the concerts in the park are held on Wednesday, but we're looking at doing something to maybe meld those two to get a bigger turnout. We will be bringing back the police department awards. Prior to COVID, we presented those at a council meeting, and Deputy Mayor Carter and Mayor McCullough have not heard back from Mayor McCullough, but he didn't say no. Tentatively, it's scheduled to be on the April 12th council meeting where we will have our annual awards and we'll present those at the beginning of the council. Last item I have is Pierce County Jail will be reducing their COVID restrictions here coming up on Monday, and we are going to, as joint law enforcement for Pierce County, we're going to have and this isn't for publication just yet because we don't want to give the bad guys a heads up. We're going to have Pierce County's top 100 where we all collectively identify the top 100 people who have been victimizing our communities in the county and round them up, and they're going to be expanding the jail population, and hopefully we'll be able to book again without restrictions, and we'll see a little bit of impact on the crime rate. So that'll start Monday. It's going to be a week-long emphasis. We're all working together, all the police agencies in Pierce County together to identify those people.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thanks, Chief. All right, we'll go into our business and action items. AB 2218, Resolution 3014, and ILA with Puget Sound Auto Theft Task Force.
Thank you. This is to update the interlocal agreement with the Auto Theft Task Force. We've been a member of this for about 10 years now, and that's where Detective Kyle Torgerson is retiring, and we put Detective Nate Vance in there. They're having a little cross training for this month, so he can kind of get a little bit of information. But this looks like it is funded at least through June of 2023. So for the next year, it will be funded, and we hope it will be funded beyond that. But this pays 100% of the officer's salary and benefits while assigned to the task force. And prior to the legislation change, I was looking at pulling this detective back and having them work at Bonney Lake just because we didn't really have a lot of auto thefts. Now it has just exploded. Good sense to work on this regional task force because usually the same people victimizing all of our communities. So if they work together, so I would definitely recommend passing this for a second.
Or is it the 8th? Is it on next week, the 8th? No, today is the 8th.
No, I think
It's the action.
it was March 22nd, I think. This one, mine says February because I forgot to bring it forward last month.
I have no problem with this being on the consent. Anyone else? Good, okay. I will move it to the consent agenda for the 22nd. All right, item number 2, AB 2240, Resolution 3028, Retention Bonus Memorandum of Understanding with the BLP Guild.
This was something that had authorized at the beginning of the year as a retention bonus for commission members and CSOs. A lot of it has to do with the change in working environment. We will be implementing body cameras, which is a pretty substantial change for the positive. This was just in recognition of the officers' hard work that have occurred the last couple of years as far as legislation, equipment.
Any reason why it's before us instead of finance?
Police matters fall under public safety.
Okay, I have no problem with it. I just want to make sure I wasn't overstepping a finance thing. Okay. I'm okay with that going to the consent as well on the 22nd. Anyone have any objection to that? Okay. And third one is an approval of meeting minutes. I did have some corrections that were sent in that we sent over to Debbie and got those in. So can I get a motion to approve as amended? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes pass as revised. And we'll go down to open discussion, Eatonville court contract. John.
Yeah, our contract with Eatonville, to provide municipal court services automatically renews. Term was up at the end of 21 on December 31st of this year. So, reaching out to Eatonville, hopes of renegotiating new terms of an agreement, in particular related to what we were just talking about, body cameras. They're starting to do body cameras that would have an impact on our prosecutor's office. And then, Kathy, we've done them for about, what, 10 or 11 years now? Yeah, 10 years we've served as our municipal court. However, things took a hard right last night when we got an email from the mayor of Eatonville saying that they're going to pursue municipal court services with the city of town of Roy. Looks like we will be leaving our municipal court and other avenues. But I hope to be an update was part of the heads up they're leaving us.
Okay. Does that do anything as far as staffing wise and budget wise and all that kind of stuff?
We'll have to look into that. I don't know how, they had a pretty small caseload in.
All right. Now the meat of the subject, the Allen York boat launch. Chief Jeter.
We met out there Friday with council members Swatman, Watson, Fullerton to look over. The bottom line is obviously building new ball field has displaced all of our boat trailer parking. We have 0 boat trailer parking. Configure ball field 4 will be able to get maximum of 30 boats or vehicles and trailers in there on a given day, and we would be displacing 80 vehicles.
When you say ball field 4, you're talking the existing parking.
Correct.
Okay, not the field
yeah,
itself.
not
Car
the
parking
okay.
right now.
right. So, but we would be displacing 80 vehicles from that parking lot with absolutely nowhere to put them out other than into existing neighborhoods. Could accommodate a few at the old city shops and around the building. We wouldn't be able to park them behind the gate or anything like that because Public Works is still going to be in the process of moving things and using it as storage for the interim. So that's the main concern is what are we going to do with those 80 cars and the impacts that those are going to have on the residents that live around there. Typically, on a hot day, we'll have 20 to 30 cars that will fill up the ball field 4 lot, and then we'll have the additional overflow into the neighborhood, which causes a certain amount of angst and phone calls to City Hall and the police department. Even though they're parked, quote unquote, legally, they do other things and drop their trash along the way. And typically, our officers are busy handling issues at the park. And I know when I met with the council members on Friday, we had 2 officers on day shift. So we would have our 2 officers that would have to handle all of this. Typically, we might have 1 detective on and maybe 1 or 2 members of command staff on, depending on Friday, to handle the park. So the big concern is to accommodate 30 trucks and trailers, we would be displacing 80 vehicles. I would venture to say that the vehicle traffic is probably higher than the boating traffic. And I'd say it's a cloudy day, 75, where we're still going to get quite a few people at the park. We may not have the boating traffic. We can't then allow cars to park in the boat area because then if boat trailers do decide to show up, we would have nowhere to put them. 30, we had 1,105 launches last year. We sold 140 voting passes, which are not included. Those are city residents. Those aren't included on the launches because they don't have to punch into the kiosks. Those are only the people that paid and were honest about it. You might have somebody that launched in the morning that didn't pay, like say fishermen. One of the other challenges is going to be, currently we ask for Pierce County Security to have 1 at the boat launch and 1 at the parking lot to make sure that when we're full, we quit launching. And when we have a spot open, we can launch somebody else. We have them from 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening, which is kind of our peak time. But if the word gets out, people can fill up that trailer area before 10 o'clock when we started having staff there. So by the time they get there, in theory, it could be full. So we need to talk about if we're going to allow the boat launch, if we're going to reconfigure Ball Field 4, are we going to sell our boating passes to our residents, and just how we're going to manage that whole thing. And again, staff would recommend that the boat launch just be closed. I know it stinks, but I think that's part of progress because we've identified that we could probably add an additional 30 spots, 30 to 40 maybe on the outside if Ball Field 4 in 2023, and use Ball Field 4 and the actual ball field or make it legitimate parking, stripe it, maybe encroach a little bit onto the old public works yard. And then we would be gaining 115 with the new ball field. So we would be actually gaining 30 spots in 2023, and we would have the time to address the boat trailer parking. It's just the timing of the construction is really unfortunate. I know we had to move quickly on this, but it would have been optimum to start the construction maybe mid-September and then go through and have it done by the time the boating season started. But obviously we can't do that. I can't go back in time, but whatever council decides, we will certainly deal with it, but I just want you to know the impacts it will have on the staff. It would impact our folks in public works both. And it would cost about, to have Pierce County Security there, an additional about $70,000 to restripe and chip seal that lot and add the signage. It would be an additional $35,000. So you're looking at $105,000 to allow 30 boats a day in there and displace 80 vehicles a day. So again, the cost benefit there of throwing $100,000 at a temporary solution, which isn't perfect, and there is no perfect solution, but that's what we ask you to consider.
So one of your suggestions was taking ball field 4, the actual ball field, getting rid of public works next year after you guys all move out. And Ryan, I think you said somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 to do that. For me, we're going to spend $100,000 on a temporary solution. I'd rather spend $200,000 on a permanent solution.
Sorry, Jason,
Yeah.
just to keep in mind that 200,000 is based on a gravel lot. If we're really going,
That's another budget cycle, my friend.
sounds good.
But it would be permanent, so that's basically what he's saying.
Mhm.
But, so I had a question too, was, because you're saying like the fishermen, like they usually get boats at 5 a.m. their vehicles, but aren't we gonna like have a rope across the parking area? And then when the security guards get there at 10 a.m., then they boats. Therefore, it would be the fishermen really be.
Problem with that is then we were going to have to extend the hours of security because you're going to have somebody there until all the boats are off the lake. So we would have to extend probably till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, which is going to then run into overtime.
That's right.
So it's going to be $60 an hour instead of $40 an hour from 6 till 10. Have to do that till all the boats were out of the lot. Then you would have to have somebody that's going to physically lock that, and then we'd have to let our citizenry know that you can't get on the lake from that launch prior to 10 a.m.
Even if you're parking somewhere else.
If you park somewhere else, that's fine, but if we're going to close the boat launch down and the trailer,
Right, yeah.
yeah, we would have to, we can't piecemeal it is what I'm trying to say. It's more difficult. It would make it difficult to enforce, maintain if we did that.
So can we basically say it's closed to anybody who needs to park? But if you don't need to park,
But
your boat,
again,
then
how do
if you
you,
have a friend that can drive you back and forth or whatever, boat, but otherwise,
but
you know.
again, who's gonna monitor that and where they
Yeah.
park and
plus the fishermen, they usually parking.
Yeah, it's one thing to park at Allen York with your trailer at 5 a.m. across 6. If you're out by 7:30 or 8, when I go and take pictures at 5 in the morning, there's 2 or 3 of them that are there. So, but
What about, Ryan? What if we stop construction, the parking for the summer for boats again at Moriarty? Start up, and of course we lose the $1,000 grant unless we can get another extension, but, can we do construction in the winter?
You could, but there's other costs there too. Your contractor's gonna have to pay, have them come back out. The work as we get into the fall and winter months really hampered it. Fire probably additional. So really, that's not a path you want to go down. As a matter of fact, because that wasn't in the contract to begin with, there's probably a claim there on the part of the contractor to actually come back to the city and ask for more money in addition to them. Really in violating our own contract. So it's not really a direction we'd want to go. It would get expensive.
And then what about, also, because we have the Public Works, which is back behind Ballpark 4, and the Senior Center. Are you going to eventually be destroying those buildings, or are you just going to take down the fences and allow people to park where you normally storage back there?
Sure.
Or are the buildings going to become a parking lot?
My understanding, and I would need maybe John to chime in here a little bit, but the ultimate goal of the Allen York Park project altogether, all those different phases, is that eventually all of those buildings over there, minus one, I'm trying to say.
The Senior Center.
The Senior Center, and I'd like to keep another building up top to stage the park employees and their equipment there so they don't have to go back and forth. But the plan for the Allen York Park project is that primarily all of those buildings, minus those cleared, demolished, removed, and then there would be parking in place.
And then the decant station, when that's gone, can that be car parking? Looks like you can fit at least 30 cars back there, maybe 20, I don't know.
So that's an interesting question.
And then they could walk upstairs to go to that ballpark up there, have it be overflow parking.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because some of that comes down to what RCO will define as. We acquired all that land through a grant with RCO. The terms of that is that all that land would be used for park purposes. In my head, parking would maybe be a park use, and so they might be okay with that.
Put a playground in the corner.
I mean,
They call it play park.
the original plan for the master plan was that there'd be a BMX track back there. So, I mean, just thinking my way through this out loud right now, cars would have to park there. So I would imagine once we are completely moved out of there, potentially could be, kind of going out on a limb a little bit, but there might be.
I think, there needs to be some maintenance care of too, like we have maintenance on their fields that aren't being, or that are being used, but, we need to have upkeep on those. The Shake Shack is what I call it. And then the bathrooms that we're adding, those are gonna need. So do we have maintenance people that are going to take care of those things? All of these new wonderful things, but then do we have maintenance to cover all of that?
No.
Well,
You have 2 parks employees right now.
yeah,
Actually, more like 1.5, because one is really getting close to retirement. I expect him to go at any time. So really, and Jack could definitely chime in here, we do not have the park staff necessary to maintain. And we've never maintained a turf field before, which is what we're putting in. So there's going to be a learning curve there,
Yeah.
potentially new equipment.
but we're going to need to hire through for these parks.
Yeah.
And then you field itself, I mean, Officer Kent, and they're running theirs from like 7:30 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. Things we can't even fit.
And during seasonal, you can't hire enough people you can't find enough people to hire.
Going to be an indoor bathroom with flushing toilets and water. We're also
Well, we already have that existing indoor bathroom with flushing toilets.
Yeah,
You?
there's-
well, I mean, but do we have
It'll be a ditch.
Park staff.
cleaning people to go in and or by hourly?
you have to log in.
So
Wait a minute.
my thing is, none of the council, no one wants the park shut down or the boat launch. But I put a lot of weight into what Chief requests. And I think there's a lot of respect and experience that comes with that. I don't think his requests come lightly. I don't think any of us take them lightly. So of all the things considered, that to me has the greatest weight of everything. Because if you know Chief, he doesn't come to you without reason and a valid reason for that. So the fact that he's here, made the speech 3 times now, and still pushing for it means more to me than I'll take the angry phone calls, I'll take the angry emails all day long. If Chief says this is what we need for public safety, I can't question that. I don't have a badge. I've never worked on the force. I know 2 people isn't enough to cover the entire city, let alone a park. So that's where I'm at. Closing it for this year, figuring out a plan to tear down those buildings, either permanently or Rockaway Ballfield 4, leave the 80 existing parks or parking stalls, that whatever we can in Ballpark 4 in the Public Works Center. 2023, save the $105,000 in costs, save the $300,000 in postponing something that's been in the works for half a decade, and bear the brunt of
for construction.
bear the brunt of this for a season. We're also going to get a lot of data out of this that is ancillary, but one of the concerns we've been talking about is potentially putting not a roundabout, but a turnabout coming into Allen York Park to where you can't get through that area. This would be a really good example of what we can do, even though it's not going to be shut down. Getting rid of that boat traffic would allow us to kind of see what we're going to be dealing with if that were an option. And I talked with Ryan, even if that were, his suggestion was, even if that was just a Memorial Day to Labor Day thing, that, we just put up some barricades there and shut that down for that time, because it doesn't need to be that way all year long. But we're going to be able to get a lot of data from that. We're going to be able to see what the crime looks like, the boating, the injury rate, the drinking rate, all of that kind of stuff. We will see that drop down. That will help these folks out with having fewer boats on the water for this year, help their shoreline kind of stop eroding away as they're getting the boating authority back up and running. And there's a lot of side effects to this that I'm, like I said, I'm okay taking the emails and the nasty phone calls, and I'm going to be one of the guys that can't go out on the lake either. But I think the sacrifice we need to make it's what growth is, right? There's growing pains. We can't satisfy and make everyone happy. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I think unfortunately you're having to deal with a problem that through a short-sighted project. That's the whole problem here. And then you're having to pick up everything on a project that just should have been reconsidered when the wetlands were discovered, and the project should have been looked at again. Fortunately, it pushed through. It's not something I agree with at all. I don't think a ball field belongs in Allen York at all. It's just adding more people to a place that's already highly crowded. But I don't want you to take up the brunt of a problem that was created not by you. And of course, officers have to always deal with that kind of thing. And I'm really sorry. Especially because you have to enforce and you have to deal with the angry people, and It's ridiculous. So that's the only reason why I would support that in just merely saying I don't support the ball field going into Allen York. I will say with this temporary lot where the space was, I see that there, and I know that everybody keeps referencing and saying ball field number 4. Is this field that I see that's a bit run down? It's kind of behind this
Yeah, behind the
temporary.
parking lot.
Okay, so
Yeah,
in,
so
Mhm.
right here, this is just for Little League, so like
Yeah.
all of this can become parking.
okay, is
but
that the plan?
that's- Yeah,
It's
well,
certainly
now
one of
it
the plans.
is,
That's what
now it is, so
that's what
I,
we
I,
would
I want them
suggest.
to have this up and going by 2023, so
I
they're
see.
gonna research that hopefully and
Okay.
figure out if that can be done.
Um,
And then also
so
over
are you gonna
here,
be able
this
to
is
take
gonna be
more?
parking. And then there's a creek in here, but I'm trying to figure out if we can put like a walkway, like a archway, like a little footbridge that people, so they can take their little buggies with their babies in.
There already is a path through
Okay,
there.
so there is a
Yeah,
path
there's
through there
already a
that would
path
take
through
them from Public Works parking over here to the parking area for boats.
Is this comparable in size then to this boat trailer? Because I was told previously, boat trailer parking was a lot smaller, and then eventually Bonney Lake created this large lot for the 100+ boat capacity.
We've
Yeah.
taken very preliminary looks. I don't know that I could say with confidence that parking lot
Yes,
and the field
Yes.
is going to be as much storage as Moriarty.
but certainly more
But
than
more than-
23 or 30. Okay,
Yeah, it would at least double that, which would accommodate most days.
okay,
So, we may have to put a cap on it some days, but most of the days we would. Where
okay,
this year, we'd have to have somebody there every day monitoring.
yes. Yeah, no, that's,
I'll also add though that Allen York Field is, we're gonna put a new there. So you're really repurposing that one. You're gonna take that ball field and now you're just finding a new way to use better benefits of the community.
Yeah,
And
you're not
Well,
losing the field as
you're not
much as you're
losing
relocating that one.
Oh,
yeah.
And
so
making
we
it-
can
So
get
you're really
rid of
getting
this
rid of
field
that.
altogether, because I
Yeah, I've
thought
been
that
on that
this
field
one
and-
was for like Little League, so like the little guys, they can't hit the
Sure.
ball far enough to put a hole in somebody's, car window or like a big hailstorm or baseballs, because it's literally gonna go from here to their feet.
Yeah,
They're
so
just
the new
learning
field's
how to
gonna have a
hit.
baseball field that you could start using instead of that, just actually have bleachers.
Okay,
Okay.
so we can
And-
actually use that whole entire field then for,
I believe it has 2, right? One in the far corners?
not this.
No, the
not
new
Public
one.
Four.
The one
The
that
new
no
one,
one says
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some good bleachers.
One
Yeah.
other thing I want to point out too, Alden, you weren't at the last workshop, but
Mhm.
this is a problem about between 20 and 30 days.
Yeah,
When the temperatures get into the 80s.
right,
Most of the other days, we had 1,105 launches that were counted.
mhm,
So that averages about 9 a day from Memorial
Gotcha.
Day to Labor Day. So
right,
in the scheme of things,
Minimal.
but when on those 20 to 30 nice days,
yeah,
we showed
I've been there.
the overhead there of 40 on just a decent day in July.
yes,
That there was plenty of room there, but we would only be able to do 30 every day.
okay,
So on those days that were really, you're gonna displace a lot of people. And how do we get the messaging out? And do we give the citizens of Bonney Lake a priority over who's gonna enforce that? It's just,
So I know we're talking about this boat launch situation, but one of the things you had mentioned was parking as an issue. So I think one of my, I was talking to some officers and just getting their ideas about what's going on down there. And is it possible, since I feel like the majority of the people that are traveling to Allen York, it's the free, beach that you can go
that's
to.
the only free
And,
access
they're
to
traveling from all over. It's out of towners. And so and we don't have the capability to close it off like Pierce County. So, is it possible for us to maybe talk about and consider putting, parking lots that are numbered and metered? Because then it wouldn't necessarily require someone to be there.
I thought we passed a metered thing.
So there is currently $60,000 in the budget to install pay for parking kiosks at Allen Park.
Oh,
Council
that's
did
great.
did
Okay.
pass that for this biennium. However,
Yes.
we're now in the second year of that biennium and we still haven't procured equipment. We still, there's still things to figure out there. So it's getting tight for us to probably spend that money in this
Okay.
biennium. It may be an effort that has to be.
Is there anything we can do to get the ball rolling on that, or?
I think Chuck.
Oh, hi.
Hi,
Hi, Chuck.
I did speak with a couple different parking equipment and like cloud-based in terms of like a waiting list.
Oh, yes.
And the first thing they said was, it's way too late because of all supply chain issues to do anything this summer in
Okay.
terms of parking equipment. To backtrack just a tiny little bit,
Yeah.
when I spoke and showed them on Google Maps what we're looking at wanting to do, their number one suggestion was you've got to automatically put an automatic gate in the parking lot, and that's how you're restricting access. So what you would do is you come in, you would not be able to pay to launch your boat. Pay station could be at the launch, but you wouldn't be able to pay unless there's actually a spot open. And you could do that through your device. You could do that, a number of different ways that they have.
For
It doesn't
boat,
have to
for
be
boat trailer parking,
for boat trailer
but
parking.
not necessarily,
But they can do it for anything.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can have if you wanted to put, like how Seattle, they've got just a couple of pay stations and then all kinds of numbered parking. You don't have to have a meter at every, in front of every parking space. You just have one or two pay stations on different sides of the
yeah,
park.
and they pay for the number.
And they pay for the number
Yeah.
for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have to be gated, would it?
That wouldn't know, but
Okay.
I was just trying to backtrack a little bit
Yes.
because we've never talked about gating the
Boat trailer.
proposed boat trailer.
Yeah.
And they said that's really the only way you're going to be able to control access, especially if you don't have anyone there during that. And you would have two different gates where you would allow exit after like 6, but allow no entry into that system. So really, you're allowing people to get off the boat or get off, take their boat out of the lake and leave. But then after 6 p.m., you're not allowing people to come in.
Okay.
So that would work great.
That would
Yeah.
work great. Again, we're talking, 23 at the earliest
Yes.
because of equipment.
Okay.
But because that's that you have a really hard right in and a right out of that parking area, we're going to have to take up maybe some space in order to have that gate far enough where you can have someone pull their boat and their vehicle all the way in
Mhm.
before a gate opens and closes. So unfortunately, Allinger Park is a hard place to do anything.
But if we did that at the Public Works Center, after those buildings are gone, we have a larger queue
Mm-hmm.
Right.
to get
Yeah.
in and bypass the current ball
Yeah,
field
you
4
could
parking
keep
lot.
that across, and,
Yeah.
and depending on whether there's wetlands in between, we might be stuck with some issues, bridging those two areas if that is truly a wetlands that's separating the two areas.
Okay.
I think that we would be really wise to consult with a parks consultant that deals with this daily basis. I mean, we're all just kind of spitballing here from our experience,
Mhm.
where this person that does this for a living, and I had preliminary talk with somebody that does this, and he just ideas that could give us short-term, long-term, and kind
Okay.
of guide us through that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I think would be very beneficial
Okay.
and would be able to, John, I don't know maybe what your experience is, but I found that to be very beneficial where they could kind of walk us all through that and what the impacts of these decisions would be and would have experience with the stuff that Chuck's talking about, could look at it. I don't have that background. I don't think you guys have that.
But that could
background.
certainly be a first step.
I would, yeah,
Okay.
I would just add to that that's exactly, if we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about adding parking capacity.
Yes.
There's something that needs to address a problem that we'll always
Has always
have.
been.
It has always been, and we want to resolve, but the use is always going to be there. Then I would definitely make a recommendation to move forward with hiring a consultant who can do an analysis of areas that we have that are available for parking. They can make determinations about where the best bang for the buck is, where we can get more vehicles stored at than others. We
Mhm.
can do a preliminary analysis that basically says this area is better than that one. And we
Okay.
can do this right one time
Mm-hmm.
and then move forward. They can make recommendations on the gates
Yeah.
And the pay for parking
That Chuck
structures.
would or the consultant?
No, the
would?
consultant. would.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just.
But Chuck
I'm not a
would. He's-
consultant.
Okay.
He said it, so I'm pointing at.
Yeah.
You stayed at
okay.
a Holiday Inn.
I was like,
I
oh,
did.
very good.
But I would say that if that's of interest to the budget for that, coming back to you all with, there's tremendous value.
For somebody.
This kind of service. Evaluate and select based. So that part we wouldn't be.
So we could compare different consultants
Absolutely.
as far as that.
That is something that typically retain
Okay.
consultants for.
Yeah.
I don't. Part of that, if you like, we probably move quicker if we
No, I
continue the
believe
way
it.
we normally do.
Yeah.
But I don't think to just jump on it right away. I'm not going to say I don't. We will not be able to have additional parking ready before 2023. Before Memorial Day of 2023, potentially, yeah. But right now, just to lay out the timeline
Memorial
for
Day
you,
or Labor Day?
Memorial Day of 2023.
So that would be May of 2020. We
Just-
would,
That's when the
because-
voting season starts.
yeah, so we would have parking or we would,
I believe we can have parking by that
Okay.
time. But just to lay out the timeline really quick, I mean, right now, just to make sure and get all the proper approvals and everything, we're probably looking at a month to talk this through and make sure everybody buys off on it.
Mhm.
Then you're looking at, a couple months by the time you advertise and award and get through council process to bring sorry, I'm one step ahead of myself. We retain a consultant to get the design done. The design is probably 3 to 4 months. Then we take that design to add and we see what contractors are interested. By the time we get that awarded, that's another 2 months. Then your construction is probably anywhere, depending upon the extent and whether we can get materials or not, as we're finding out on a lot of our projects, that's tough. You're probably anywhere 3 to 6 months to complete the construction of it. I'm throwing a lot of fluff in there because I just don't know. I mean, any electronic thing right now seems to take forever. Sorry, I keep pointing at you, Chuck.
with
It's
chips.
my fault. So.
We just, it's as much as I would love to be able to.
But, yeah, right, but you could do it in a phase where, all right, 2023 is parking fence structure, 2024 is parking payment and
Meter.
the
Potentially
meters
it
and
could
all
be
that kind of
phased,
stuff,
sure.
yeah.
Mhm.
Sure.
That way, we're not being disappointed if May comes around and we have free parking for that year, but I mean, we're talking long-term stuff and
Mhm.
midterm stuff, but right now, we really need to talk about the short-term
Yep.
Yeah.
stuff, because May is just the month after next. What are we doing on the boat parking as it exists today? We okay with shutting down the boat launch and parking for 2022 season?
Allowed to ask who have been coming. You guys, you,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, live on. Two. Just so everybody gets a big visual, currently on the lake right now, there are 2 public launches. The North County Park and then Allen York. To that, there are 7 what they call, they're called maintenance companies, which are assessed, basically HOAs, performed when the lake. Each of those maintenance companies has a launch for their group of homeowners. Be it a person who lives on a lake or especially someone who lives on an island. Everybody on the interior of the island can use that too. About a quarter of the properties on the lake have a launch. We happen to be fortunate to have our own launch and we have access. So we're not impacted, but we want to make sure that the public enjoy the lake, even though
we do want there to be less boats on the lake at any one time. Still think it's important that. So as I'm listening to this, my concern is the timing. We belong to the Lake Taps Voters Group Facebook site. They're already abuzz about when your guys' launch is opening. And I don't know who the communication person is, but you need to take a look up your website. Your website right now says that the launch will open when the lake reaches recreational level. That happened 3 weeks ago. So they're chomping at the bit right now. And people they're posting it. They're saying, oh, here's what the site says.
Yeah.
So they're chomping at the bit. The fact that this is going to come out now, without any kind of public hearing, and just, I know you said you take the calls, that you're going to hear it. And it's not just 30 days. Every day people launch from Allen York. More so, obviously, on the hot days, but every day, as you said, the fishermen, we're woken up every morning at 5 o'clock to what we call the fishing emergency. They launch, they're out there, they're buzzing around. So I'm just concerned for you as public officials about the heat you're going to take. I heard someone say, council member, about the timing, that it was kind of like you got the cart before the horse. So that's my concern for you guys is how are you packaging this? What outreach are you doing to those maintenance companies or HOAs? Because there's going to be pressure put on them, just as you guys mentioned, the parking in the neighborhood. People are going to want a place to launch. So getting out to them and asking them, would they help people? There's something in your lake plan that says those of us with private launches are not to allow people to launch because that wasn't the expectation. So I'm concerned about that. As much as I would like to reduce traffic, I feel for the people who depend on that. They can go to the county, but there's limitations. The county limits for what the number is, and they shut it down because you have to park there. You can't launch your boat and then drive out, which they do here. So that would be.
My concern, my name is Jeff Lincoln, Nancy and I are partners. North Island Drive, in the Island. Incidentally, I've been nominated to serve on the Voting Advisory Council, being reactivated for Pierce County. I should be appointed next week and shortly thereafter. The concern here, as former public works director, I can tell you that the slam you're going to see from the public will be, who the hell planned this? As it doesn't look like the sequencing was done very well. If you're talking about how you're going to manage parking, talking about parking this year and then next year, the cycle of planning is conceptual, architects and engineers, and then in parking, you're going to need a PSA for a parking specialist if you're going to buy hardware. You've got telecom, you've got telemetry, you've got remote monitoring, you've got all sorts of issues to deal with. You don't have a plan for this year, and in order to have a plan for next year, your budget cycle is going to start in August. So if you don't have a plan with budgetary numbers, 10% designed by August, you're not going to have it in your budget for next year. So you're really realistically talking about solving this problem, addressing the problem in 2024. So I understand how those RSO grants work. Parks directors drive you crazy. I've had 2 of them. Drove me insane. Come up with the money, they come up with a plan, and the next thing you know is build a ball field or something like that. We've got to commit the money, and we've got to do the match, and we've got to do all that stuff. But I think you're going to have a blowback from the community. There's an expectation that Allen York Park public launch, and a lot of people, I think a lot more people launch there than you think launch there.
They're not using your parking lot. They are launching and having their friends take them. And how your setup is, I don't see that it controls people launching.
We've actually ferried people who broke down on the lake to the retrieval point, and another one up to pick up a truck at the north end of the lake so that they could come back and get it. So there's a lot of dynamics here about all of this. Dynamic includes the relationship between Pierce County and the operation of that park and launch it out in New York. And then all the other 7 launches that are semi-public, they're kind of loosey-goosey operating. They have the same problems at the park on Inlet Island that you have in Allen, New York. There's no parking. Those people there are bringing the boat in, launching, and then that thing has to go somewhere else if there's no place to park it.
You have to have a pass, and these are those maintenance centers you have to have, or maintenance companies you have to have a pass to park in the lot. And they actually monitor their lot probably more than the city does. But as members of the maintenance company, we could let our friend launch there and then bring their boat to our house. As long as almost every, I think all of them are gated, have some kind of a pass code, but we see people, that someone's given them.
You can watch the traffic come in off of 214. They go straight in. My recommendation to the committee is before you make this pronouncement, you go public, say this is the decision, the recommendation of the committee, and recommend to the council to do this. Come up with a more definitive plan of what this looks like for this year and next year. I really think you're going to see incredible growth. Again, this doesn't affect us personally at all. I mean, this is an improvement for us, but for the community, this is going to create a form of epic proportions.
So I wonder if another potential thing could be, because the plan is to close the boat launch. We won't have trailer parking, but is there still a possibility that we can have the boat launch open and people who decide to, drop off their boat and have a friend, then drive the trailer to a different location? It at least gives the citizens some level of choice. Because that's what my friend who has a boat has already considered doing that very same thing. And then I still go back to what Gwendolyn was saying earlier, but it sounds like it's not a possibility. But again, I still feel like this was a mistake in the making, that, having the boat trailer parking and suspending the construction. Even if it's just for 2 months, not the entire summer. Because then I feel like the citizens would see that we're trying, we made a mistake, and we're trying to make this a good thing for them. But I also think that if we are going to move forward and let's say open the boat launch, but not have a temporary parking lot, and then maybe even considering this other option is,
There's no good solution. That's what we're trying to, because this was passed in January, end of January. So now we're scrambling. Oh, good solution. It's either you displace 80 cars or you make a spot for 30 trailers. And again, you're going to turn people. Got to be monitored. And I agree. That's what we're trying to do, is say, if we're going to shut it down, you've got to have a plan either way. That's what we're trying to establish. What is our plan moving forward? You can't just say we're deal with it. There's no easy solution. People are going to lose their minds no matter what. We've eliminated
house and
100 parking
taking
spots
tight
for
corners
boats,
that they
and
shouldn't be
we're
doing,
looking
because
to drop that down to 30.
not
and
everyone's going to be
displace
there to be
80
responsible and
vehicles
drive
that
8 blocks to
they
their
can
friend's
park.
house. And
So
drop
those
off
people use it.
Yeah, but I think that's
every
when,
day too.
they're going to park in front of
Yeah.
that spot.
Can we say, there's
Yes.
no parking?
One final comment. I hear the councilwoman's term. Speaking as a former public works official, terminating a public works contract is not a trivial matter.
gotcha.
If you say suspend it, you can have extended overhead. You're going to have claims.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to issue a change order for sure.
Yeah.
You might be able to negotiate it. It might wind up costing you a third to a half more than what.
Okay.
So, this is for your public works director, city administration to determine that.
Mm-hmm.
At some point in time, you'd be better off to terminate for convenience.
Yeah.
And then rebid it. But either way, because of the way public works works,
Mm-hmm.
really structured in what you got to do and what you can do.
Is there a possibility then that if we keep the launch open, continue construction without suspending it, but then have some sort of plan in place that then goes to budget so that we're not waiting a whole nother year.
Oh, yeah.
Because then
that
I
would be
think
the
at least the
recommendation.
people will see, we're trying to do something. I just think we
Yeah.
can't just close it and say, we're not really sure what we're doing.
No, and
next."
it has to be short-term, midterm, long-term.
Yeah,
Now, hypothetically, this plan goes perfect. That's not wetlands, there's no mitigation. We still have no boat parking this year.
Unless we reconfigure ball field 4 and displace
I-
80 vehicles.
Right. No, I mean, even if the boat parking was going to go in as planned, we would still not have it for an entire season, no matter which.
from the
Still waiting
original
for it to
plan.
be
Yeah.
built. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
So this isn't a displacement necessarily of, because of the plan failed. It would have to be shut down no matter, we not shut down. We would not have parking no matter what year. If we were even able to make that boat parking in the wetlands as the plan shows, we
Right.
still wouldn't have boat launching, or boat parking for the time, the duration of the construction.
No, I know that I did look at that. I think just the thing where I'm in a heavy amount of that, I just don't think a ball field serves well,
Or beyond that point, I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking boat parking. I mean, you can
Right.
Debate that,
Yeah.
elsewhere, but right now we've got to do something, so.
To say, well, we'll keep the boat launch open. Sailors.
Right, the construction traffic.
Well, certainly that's been a process.
I was just wondering, and I'm just throwing this out. That it could be open on the weekend. Beyond the water.
Is there a
Would be
sliver
some
we
kind
can, is there a sliver we can carve out
That's
at
what
Moriarty and even move it around weekend to weekend or during construction? I don't know how it's phased out there.
I don't think so. And I mean, honestly, contractor inhibited to be able to get the project done. I would be hesitant to
Plus theft of any equipment that's take that off when they're not. What about the, Lake Road, there's that farm. Build right. Can we just move that, those to
they would be giving
Hey.
permission to us.
yeah, so
That's
can
private
they,
property.
allow people to park on their property and pay like, the Tualatin Fairgrounds, like
That's up to them.
people
It's-
pay
yeah.
their,
That's up to
I don't know
them.
if anybody knows who owns. Open up there, I think that area. I don't know, I just really.
I think anybody wants to.
I'm just trying to figure out an olive branch for you guys to give, I mean, because like I said, we're not impacted, it actually makes it nicer for us, but we don't want that for them.
But
We want the public.
like I said, no matter what, at some point, we would have no boat parking. Even in an ideal scenario that went flawless, there would still be a season without boat parking. It just happens to be this season.
Unless we redo for lot,
And-
right.
And
That could be done. this
80 for
season.
30 doesn't make sense to me.
Also just
Yeah.
financially.
It'd just be that the launch is open for the weekend and park and ride lot. I mean, I know they still have to.
We don't have access to the park and ride. That's Sound Transit.
They wouldn't allow some.
I know when we have our Beautify Bonney Lake event there once a year, we have to get $1 million indemnification clause just to be on site.
Now
So,
they have the testing site there.
But we can't open just on the weekends and basically, hey, listen, we don't have parking for you.
yeah,
Last week.
I mean, if that's what we say is no parking anywhere within a
Well, what do you
3-block
think- What do you
radius.
think about this?
They-
What we're saying?
Well, I mean, then again, it
Honestly.
would have to be police, we would have to sign it, so if somebody does park in one of the other lots, that it could potentially get towed, which again is, people are gonna be very unhappy. They don't want to come back from boating or fishing and have their towed. Probably have to have somebody at the launch to make sure we're telling them. So again, what do you do at 5 in the morning when a fisherman launches and then parks in the Moriarty lot, even though or not the Moriarty, the ball field 4 lot, it's not designated for boat trailer parking? Really any harm in that? At 5 in the morning, no. But say they stay on the lake till noon on a Saturday, when people start showing up, and other people start saying, "Oh, there's a boat in there." Let's kind of the camel's nose on managing that once it starts is the losing
You
proposition.
can say like 0 boat parking and vehicles will be towed.
Yeah, you can. That's what I'm
And
saying. But people
so-
are
Well,
still
without a
going to
person
be.
there.
If we
Yeah.
do, but again,
You
what
live,
happens if
you live off of Angeline.
No, I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry, not
Angeline,
Angeline,
but-
Sky Island.
Yeah,
Sky Island.
yeah.
2 years ago, we put up all these no parking signs.
They still
What do you see when the sun's setting?
They still-
So
Well, that doesn't make any sense. The no parking.
well, it's a whole
There.
separate issue. That's a gravel road. It's
But
an
yeah.
easement. It's not a parking.
But they have a
restriction.
risk
Yeah.
of getting towed, and I know boat
Right.
owners don't
And-
want to be towed.
Right. And we don't want that either, because that just makes a bad situation.
We can't put something, or something to
We would
alert
have
as
to.
many people as possible
We
to
would
say the
have
boat
to
launch
have.
is
That's
open.
what we're trying to do.
Right,
is
so
give-
we-
Only
Ryan.
launch if you have a place to park.
Ryan, could we use a reader board?
There's one available for use if obviously if we're not.
Yeah, I
Certainly
mean,
we
to
can put one out there.
put one out there.
Whatever the council decides, I agree. We have to have outreach immediately
Yeah.
and get on some of these public spots and let people know what's going to happen. You can't
Okay.
expect people that are coming from Tacoma,
Oh, yeah.
because we get
Yeah.
a lot of people from outside the area. They're not going to be happy when they drive all the way out here and if the boat launch is closed or we're limiting it to 30 boats and it's already full. So you would probably have to have somebody active on social media on boating days to say, the boat launch is full, not accepting more launches today. And I mean, not a lot of people would follow that anyhow, but I think we have to do everything we can to get it out there to the public. It's no matter what we do, people are going to be very upset.
I think this year, there's just no boat parking. If you can make availability, if you have friends that live on the lake that are gonna let you park their trailer there, then you make your arrangements, but
They can
you
pre-plan.
don't have a place to park, so therefore you don't have a place to launch. The launch is open, but you have to make your arrangements because you cannot park at Allen York.
I think
this year
people would be
because
willing
of
to do that.
construction.
Yeah.
So I would say because of construction, you can't park here, but you can launch.
How many
Even if,
boats?
and for inconvenience, I mean, maybe this year, because they have to go make arrangements, maybe they have to pay somebody to park, in their yard or something. But, just say, hey, sorry, we're not gonna charge you this year, but don't advertise it, but when they get there, just say, sorry for the inconvenience, place to park. And ask everybody that's gonna launch, do you have a place to park because we have no parking?
But that would mean they would have to
So-
We have
man.
to have
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah,
hire
and
time.
I think just if we can get the word out as much as possible.
My
I
thought,
don't
and this
know.
is I'll be my final suggestion. Four phases. Phase 1, we shut it down, 2022. We start tearing down Public Works, ball field 4 temporary for use in 2023, unpaid. 2024, we get it all through the budget, we make it permanent, we get the telemetry and all that stuff in, and if we can't get it in 2023, then make that the project for 2024. So nothing temporary, permanent, paid.
And I think in 23, having the 30 slots would be palatable because we will gain 115 of the other spots by the new ball field.
Yeah, there's parking there, yeah.
So that would accommodate the 80 that's going to get pushed out this year. So I think that would be a solution that I would definitely be in favor for, is phased in approach. 22, it's nothing. And if we can't get both ball fields done, then we have the temporary, we move to the 30, then we move to the build out in 24, and that way it's phased in. But you have to present the plan to our citizens so they understand. I would definitely be in favor of something like that because 30 boats is easier to manage. I mean, it's still going to be a problem. because you're gonna be turning people. But it's gonna be less of a problem because you haven't pushed 80 cars out into the neighborhood. They're gonna be able to park over by the new ball field.
Yeah,
And you've gained 30 some
yeah,
spots.
after that, yeah. So, yeah,
That to me is more palatable than just, trying to mitigate the 80 cars that are going somewhere and limiting the boats. You have two issues there. As far as opening it up to people that want to park elsewhere, that's up to council. But again, we're gonna have to have it signed, and people are not gonna be happy if they go park in one of those lots and they end up getting towed, even though it's literally signed.
Yeah.
We just have to deal with it. And again, whatever council decides, we will deal with it. It's my job to let you know what the ramifications are and what our suggestions are based on.
what do you guys said? We can't push this out until April,
No,
so we have to
can't.
make a
We
decision
can't. We have
tonight,
to make
so.
a decision. So is this something that we're discussing at council,
that
or is
tonight?
this next week?
No,
at a
we're gonna make
workshop,
we're
or-
gonna make a
and it'll be
suggestion
put
from
on
here.
consent agenda.
Probably not consent, but
Okay.
yeah, it would be
Or
something that we'd
brought
have
full
to,
council.
yeah, it would have to be something that, there'd have to be an agenda bill put together, a resolution or
But they would
something.
just see what our decision.
Well, it would go on to public safety, so it wouldn't be a
Yeah.
consent, so we would have the ability to discuss it at that
Okay.
point.
It weighs heavy on.
Who will roll out the plan as far as advertising to people? Here are the phases that we're looking at.
That'd be the administration and probably Ryan and maybe,
Is anybody covering for Leslie?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Leslie's out for an extended period of time, so,
Yeah.
Sadie has the ability to update the website and do the Facebook posts. Although she's burdened with other workloads.
yeah.
Okay.
We recommend outreach to those.
Yeah, that's gonna be the key.
Even if we have to hire somebody, I'm sure there's
Yeah,
companies
a
that would do
media
that. So
consultant.
I think that's important. I agree with these folks back here. We have to get the decision out, whatever it is, to the people as possible, so they can plan and we can plan. That's why we've been kind of pushing the last 3 weeks to get direction, so we can
And
move.
Chief you have your own PIO that could be doing your own.
We would do that, but I would prefer this comes from the city because it's not a police department decision.
Okay,
This is a city decision that makes, and certainly we would push out any information, but
Yeah.
we don't want to be the tip of the spear, and nor should we be the tip of the spear.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Because it's not a policing issue, because
Yeah.
we're gonna deal with it, whatever the decision is.
I'm putting it all on fire. It's just strictly water safety,
Yeah.
100%.
I have to tell you that definitely. Make the decision. You're thoughtful in your decision.
Yeah, and
Certainly not an easy.
No, it's not an easy.
There's
there is-
no
there is
good
right
solution.
no,
answer.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Well, we also have the new apartment complex that's built right across from the boat launch. And we have the construction going, we have the northwest side and the southwest of the launch that are both under construction. We're not, everything that we park is pretty much placed, so I don't think there's driving around. As far as the apartment complex or whatever that, they're gonna be.
all right, can we agree at least with a phased approach? Start with that. Phase 4 being, once the new baseball field is done, we've got 120 parking over there. Phase 4 being, we take the existing ball field 4 parking lot and turn that into boat parking.
And are we going to,
Yeah.
are we gonna
But
hire a consultant?
Want-
Yeah, well,
Okay.
but I'm starting at phase 4 and working back. Phase 3, would be taking existing ball field 4 and public works and making that a permanent parking. Phase 2 would be taking public works and ball field 4, making it temporary parking for next year. Phase 1 is no parking this year, no boat launch this year. Those are really what we have to decide right now. The rest we can decide at another date, but ultimately boat launch and boat parking.
Okay, legally, is there going to be, because if we're going to do something like that, don't you have to post public the signage out immediately when you?
Well, the boat launch doesn't open until May 25th or whatever Memorial Day falls on.
Mm-hmm.
So we have plenty of whatever that duration is, if there is any. We're well within that to start posting. We could start posting 3 weeks from now, because we got to get it through the council. So we can post 3 weeks from now and still be within that. We can get the reader boards out, even if it just says, if we do option 1 where we allow boat launch, reader sign say no parking, no boat parking at Allen York. Boat launch open, no boat parking. And we drag that around 410,
I'd be more apt
Veterans
to
Memorial.
do that.
Every week we're dropping it in a different location so that everyone is seeing it. And then we post it at the thing, no boat parking, find parking elsewhere if we go with an open boat launch. If we go with the closed boat launch, we do the same thing. We just post that around and say boat launch, and parking closed for 2022 due to construction. It's out next year.
I personally prefer the first two. I feel like people can make decisions with enough notice to use a boat launch at their discretion, finding parking prior to coming.
My only argument to that is, have you ever gone to a concert in Seattle? They park anywhere and everywhere, legally, illegally, double park behind you. They cut corners and they wipe out your tail end. If you're driving from Kent to go boating, you're not going to turn around because you can't find a parking. You're going to park someone's driveway. You're going to park somewhere that is going to be encompassing or encroaching upon our citizens. Because any of those streets, you're not parking boats on it because the distance between driveways is shorter than the F-350 with a trailer on it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just don't know that that's one-to-one comparison. I'm imagining boat owners, boat trailers. I don't know that that's a fair comparison, but I see what you're saying. I mean, it sounds like, well, we have to take this to full council anyways.
Yeah.
And we would discuss these things.
Right, but we're not going to
But
wait until
we need
April
to-
to make this discussion again on our next meeting.
Yeah. Our decision, so that doesn't come back to public safety, so we can.
I think we're all at least in agreement that there
Yeah.
is no boat parking.
Yes.
No parking.
All right, so we're
Absolutely.
dialing that
No
back down. All
boat
right, so now we're down to
We
one
don't
decision.
have parking.
We're down to one decision.
Figure it out before you come.
Are we leaving the boat launch open or closed? I put a lot of weight into what Chief Jeter says, and he's never led me wrong yet. So I don't think this is it though.
The thing is like, once I make a decision, I'm probably gonna stick to it. I don't think.
I really want you to know I'm taking what you say seriously.
Yeah.
My
And I
husband is a
appreciate the
police
consideration.
officer, so
Yeah, and
I
do too,
understand.
And I know you guys have a hard decision to make. And
Closing boat launch construction as of construction.
Can't
A
use
lot
that.
of-
I've literally trademarked Bear with us.
Yeah, restaurants, yeah, that
I
was
have.
from you, right?
Yeah, I have that
Okay,
trademarked in the state
Yeah.
of Washington, so don't use it again.
Okay.
This is your
well,
notification of my cease and desist.
Oh dear.
As Councilmember Evans stated, bear with us. Give
Yeah,
him credit for that. No, I mean, but even like stores, hey, hang in there. Hang in there, baby. We're working on this. You
yeah,
know, you can still
unfortunately.
shop here, but avoid these areas.
The price of gas, no one's gonna be able to have their boat.
Well, there you go. I mean, let's just put that up.
Yeah.
Do the price of gas.
I'm gonna go with, your recommendation. I feel like you're gonna have to. Of what's about. I say that,
No, yeah,
Driving-
it's a rock and a hard
No.
place or worse,
yeah, but I don't want to put the problem and be like, here you go. Yeah. Or the officer. You're dealing with him.
Whatever it is, we've been dealing with the park. Last 3 years, we have made progress by limiting the amount, opening up the Moriarty lot, so we have adequate boat trailer parking. Huge improvement. Don't want to lose that one.
Yeah.
It's, I don't take it like.
What if the farmhouse people all of a sudden say, hey, we'd like to earn some extra money for our property? And they say, we're going to open it up and we're going to let people pay to park here, $15 a day or whatever. You know, and then they make a ton of money.
Mhm.
Yeah, like the
Mhm.
fair.
Premium
Mhm.
day.
Then, can we rethink it?
Well,
So-
it's easy to open it.
Yeah.
It's difficult to close it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would
Yeah,
say,
Fair enough.
if a solution comes up, we can
Yeah.
pull those barriers. And,
Okay.
hey, we're back open. I mean, we can do that in hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
But to shut it down, we need months.
Problem
And that's
is,
where
we
we're
haven't
at.
had the lead
Okay.
time when this was decided was the end of January. Haven't had a lot of lead time to look at
Yeah.
options.
I mean,
Approach private
you guys met
property
with some
owners.
people a couple weeks ago. If they say, hey, we're going to go to Eli Auctions and get one of these school buses for $3,500 and track up and down Church Lake down to, Kelly Farms, okay, by all means. But I think right now, I think the best thing is to make that notification now.
Okay.
And then if we find an
It's like
alternate
when you
solution.
discipline kids, right? You start heavy first.
But
Then you can come
I
on.
mean, seriously, if we're considering this, I feel like we definitely need to have, I need a commitment that we're gonna have parking available by 2023. I don't care come hell or high water, what permits have to be pushed, what
Yeah,
we
there has to be
have to
something in
fast track.
place.
I can't stomach what's happening, and I can't stomach if it happens again next year. If we don't have parking for the boats,
I mean,
I need a commitment that we're going to be opening it next year regardless.
we're,
I don't care if it's 30 parking spots.
well, and that's the thing. Worst case scenario,
You
we
know.
have 120 new spots going in with the new ball field.
Yeah,
We can take that 30 to that 80 and put that 30 there. Even if we don't even touch ballpark 4 or the public works,
Mm-hmm.
it's a conversation for another day, but there's at least
Okay.
3 different options we can exercise tomorrow, as long as we can.
I don't want to speak for these guys, but we can have the 30 temporary spots in 23 easy.
Yeah.
We were going to have that done this year if that's what the council decides.
Yeah,
Right.
you could have them this year.
So that there definitely will be at least 30 spots available in 23.
Without-
And if council chooses, they could be ready this year.
but then we don't have parking for
The
people
other
going
end.
to the park. And that is way more popular, people going to the park than people voting.
Yeah, I know we do have a lot of people that use the launch, but on a given day, that day in July where the photo is taken, there was 40 in there.
Oh,
On
this
some of the
one.
hotter days, we have 75 to 100.
And on any given day with school out, you've got 200 to 300 people
Yeah,
in
and,
the park.
and that lot is always full.
Yeah.
Ball field 4 lot is always full
Yeah.
when it's a nice day. And it spills out into the neighborhoods.
And then you've also got concerts in the park that uses that as well. So,
All right.
We've got 6
Okay.
minutes and one more discussion
Okay.
item, so,
I will.
hold
Sorry,
on.
Dean.
Oh, yeah, Dean.
Are you okay with it shutting down for 23, or 22?
But
Are you willing to accept it being
You
shut
have
down?
you have two
I do,
here,
but-
so that's a majority.
Yeah, but I would prefer
Um,
a unanimous, just to show that we are one.
Yeah,
And if you go talk to the farm people and they say, hell yeah, let's do it, let us know. We'll figure out some sort of ILA or not. I
Yeah,
mean,
we
we won't do that, but
people.
I think for today's purpose, we need to. Yeah. John, you got your direction? Cool.
He bailed.
He bailed.
I'm like literally.
Okay.
I'm really
All right. Well, thanks
upset,
everyone.
so.
I appreciate it. I know it wasn't easy. I know it's probably one of the more difficult discussions we've had to have because no one wants to do it. But thank you. We'll move on to item 3, domestic violence response grant application.
All right, thank you. I
Yeah.
will make this really quick. So as the population of Bonney Lake is growing, and as the chief is keeping on all the time, the crime rate is going up. And with that is domestic violence cases. I have, and we also, there is an RCW, that's basically the Washington State Crime Victims' Rights Act, that has all the things we're supposed to be doing as a prosecutor's office, like about informing the victim, connecting them with resources, providing them resources, informing them of the various stages of the case. I have identified there's a federal level grant from the Office of Violence Against Women, and there are 11 grants at the national level for $500,000 each. There's no match required, so the city does not have to contribute any money. Some grants, you have it where the grant's like 100,000, the city matches maybe 100,000. There's no match required for this one. We may get it, we may not. There's only 11 at the national level. But before dedicating staff time to the application process, John wanted me to check in to make sure that is something that if we were one of the lucky 11 who got a grant, that's something that council would be interested in. So this would be used to basically create a DV advocate position. That would be a person who would work with both adult and child victims. We do have a lot of charges with exposing minor child to DV. Last year we did have a child victim who I did have to do a child interview with. And a lot of times the forensic child interviewers, quite frankly, for a misdemeanor case, they won't come in and do it because they have child molestation or rape cases they're dealing with. They're not dealing with DV, so our misdemeanor cases are not a high priority. So this would be somebody who could deal with both adult and child victims. They could connect them with local resources, ensure that they're being fully informed of case status. They could also provide training to police prosecutors on domestic violence trauma, the cycle of domestic violence. So,
Yeah,
any questions or?
Yeah,
I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah.
Seems like it doesn't,
What would be the
yeah.
duration of that person's position?
It's a 36-month loan grant.
Oh, okay, perfect. I'll get a lot of data points then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
We
was-
need to vote on that, or?
No, it's just a discussion item. We don't have
Okay.
a resolution on it. All right, now we're down to open discussion. Anyone have anything else they'd like to discuss?
I just wanted to give kudos. And also,
That's stable alignment.
the council member. And we love to build things, we like to get those grants, but the backside of the, CIP form. Putting on, 20 more parks or whatever, and then we wait till all of a sudden we're 5 years down the road and Ryan doesn't know why he can't mow all this. So
Oh, Ryan knows.
I appreciate you speaking to that piece, because it's a big thing and it causes, some big, we don't always identify.
Thanks for coming down and congratulations on the
Yes.
voting advisory committee.
Careful what you ask for.
And thanks for bringing that to our attention. So, Dave Morrell has been instrumental in helping getting that pushed through. So, yeah.
And thank you. I know I put you on, but I felt like it was really important to have citizens, ensure my citizens in here.
We've been keeping really quiet.
I appreciate that.
You know that I've been pushing to actually have it described or what's on the agenda, because we've seen on the Lake Task Force site, everybody's talking about. Yeah, we're just waiting for you guys to make your decision.
Right. Well,
So
Respectful of what you
I
have
don't
to do.
know if you can get us access to that, so then when we have to say, oh, sorry, closed for construction.
I think, Bonnie, maybe have, I think one of your,
Put it on there?
we've seen them post before. Yeah, it's on there.
Dwayne,
Still in charge,
so we
yeah.
can get a hold of Dwayne.
all right. Well, we have a finance meeting in 1 minute, so,
Thanks.
all right,
And you're
thank you
staying,
guys.
right?
I am, yeah. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.